Hey, what's up? It's Jared with Ditch Auto, and I'm finally getting around to reviewing a lens that I've had a lot of requests to review since posting some unboxing stuff and some initial thoughts and all of that. This is the Sony 85mm 1.4 G Master lens, which is just a behemoth of a lens. And, 85mm lens is just a beautiful thing in general. Canon's had their 85mm, I think it's a 1.2 or a 1.4 for a long time. And I used to own it when I was a Canon shooter, and it's just a fantastic lens. It becomes not only just a good lens to have, but sometimes I was just using it for portraits all the time. I mean, I was always using this lens because it was just enough of a focal length to get me into everything that I needed, and also just have a beautiful amount of compression in the background of the image. And this lens definitely does that. I was excited when this lens came out because, Sony, when I switched over to Sony, I felt like their lenses were really good, but I felt like they just didn't have that professional edge. They didn't have everything that all of the Canon lenses that I had before had. And when they came out with these G Master lenses, I feel like they met and exceeded that expectation that I had of what they would be. Now, not only is this lens fast at 1.4, lets in a ton of light. I mean, it just looks crazy when it's wide open. I mean, the aperture inside, the iris inside is just amazing. But it also has a manual ring. This is not a mechanical manual ring. It is kind of a fly-by-wire. So, as you adjust your aperture manually, it's electronically adjusting the aperture, which is totally fine. But it's actually pretty smooth in how it does that. It definitely moves. And when you're shooting video with this lens, which I shot pretty much an entire wedding using this lens, because what it would allow me to do is declick the aperture, because if you have click on, it clicks when you rotate the aperture ring. When you turn click off, it's nice and smooth, which means I can walk from one room to another, or walk from being inside a room to outside, and just rotate that aperture ring and blend my exposure just beautifully as I proceed through and out into another area, which before you'd have to do that on the back of the camera, or try and do that on the back of the camera, and you'd get that weird stepping of your exposure. It just wouldn't look good. It wouldn't look like what you would expect to see in a movie. And so since, Sony's been doing that with some of their lenses, been throwing that manual aperture ring on it. Of course, you could put it in automatic and then make all your changes on the back of the camera like normal. Or in my instance, I have it set up here on the front of the camera. I can adjust my aperture, or I can just rely on the ring in and of itself. Another feature that I really love is that it does have a focus lock here. So when I pull focus on a shot and I'm just not ready to hit the shutter all the way down yet, I can just lock that. And what's great about that is when you're shooting portraits, or when you're waiting for a moment and you have your focus locked on, you can even let go of the shutter button, and it's not going to reset your focus when you press the shutter button down a little bit again. And that is a bummer and leads to missed shots sometimes, because if you let off of the shutter and then you press it back down again, your camera wants to try and pull focus again. And if it has any little bit of lag in there for whatever reason, or if somebody walks in front of your camera and your camera decides to pull focus on them, then you're going to end up with a missed opportunity, either a blurry shot, or you're going to miss the shot altogether, which obviously is a bummer. So having that focus lock here is just fantastic. Of course, we've got our autofocus and manual focus switch on the side of the lens, which is great because on some other Sony lenses, they actually omit that switch, and you have to go into the settings of your camera to set that, which isn't a big deal, but it's a pain in the butt. It's one additional thing that you have to think about when you're digging through settings and all that stuff. So this lens is not light. It is a big lens. And I've got it on my A7R II. I've got a battery grip on that camera here, and it's a big package. People used to say, "Oh, I'm switching to mirrorless because it's lighter weight." Well, with these lenses, it's not really lighter weight anymore. These lenses are just as beefy as their Canon counterparts, maybe even a little bit heavier in some instances, depending on the lens. But you know, that's fine. I'm not opposed. I didn't switch to the camera because it's lighter weight. Sure, I like how the body is smaller and I can pack a few extra things with me when I'm traveling. But what I really wanted was good low light performance and a fast performing camera, which I have in this camera. And since Sony has been releasing these G Master lenses, just the powerful, just beautiful quality of image that I'm getting out of these lenses now matches. It's a perfect ecosystem. So people were asking me, like, are these lenses worth the price tag? I mean, they're extremely expensive in comparison to what we were used to paying prior to the G Master lenses with Sony lenses. And so it's expensive. We're now back in that price range of what we were used to paying for Canon glass when, you know, Canon was coming out with these new lenses. And you know, that's kind of the price that you pay to get in at this level. If you want that quality out of your images and out of your camera, you're going to have to spend that kind of money, whether you're on Canon, Nikon, Sony, any of the platforms. If you want that edge-to-edge sharpness, if you want that fast autofocus, if you want a lens that is just extremely quiet, that has pro features like autofocus lock, you're going to have to spend a little bit more money. And that's just what it comes down to. Now, this lens is a lot larger than most of my other Sony lenses. Obviously, this lens is, you know, it's 85 millimeter, but I have other lenses that are significantly smaller and have more focal distance than this lens. However, these lenses are just bigger. They give you more to hold on to. Do they necessarily need to be this large? I don't really know, but they give you a lot to hold on to, and this is very comfortable for me. When I'm holding the camera, and I use the battery grip more often than not because I have a bigger hand and I want more camera to hold on to, and then the lens as well gives me a lot to hold on to. And especially paired with my custom SLR M-Plate Pro down here, which I use a lot of times to connect a camera strap to. But it also is just a perfect little rest for my hand. You can see here, I rest it right on my hand, and then I'm able to just make nice, smooth focus pulls when I'm shooting video, or if I decide to go manual focus with my photography. It's just a nice combination. And I think that they got the ergonomics, the size of the lens, everything right with this. It's just a nice feel. And I've been using this lens in portraits in the indoor studio. I've been using it to shoot weddings, both photo and video. I've been using it to shoot pictures of my kids. I mean, it's just a great all-around lens that I could not live without these days. An 85 millimeter is almost a must for any pro shooter's bag. But then it comes down to whose 85 do you buy. And if you're shooting on Sony, if you're shooting on E-mount with these mirrorless cameras, you definitely need to have this lens if it is within your budget and you are shooting professionally. You will find so many uses for this lens, even though it's just 85 millimeters and there isn't any zoom to it. You're absolutely going to love it. So if you want more specific technical details, stats and all that stuff on this lens, you could definitely check out the link in the description below to where you can buy it. There's a lot of information available on Amazon as well about this lens, as well as other people's written reviews. I don't tend to get super technical. I tend to talk about real use cases and whether or not I can use it for what I do almost every day with photography. And this is a lens that I cannot live without anymore, nor are any of the other G Master lenses. So that's going to do it for my review on the Sony 85mm FE 1.4, 85mm GM. All those numbers and acronyms equal amazing quality, amazing cost as well, but beautiful quality images that you're going to get out of the glass that Sony has developed for this camera. Thanks so much for checking out this video. If you like it, make sure to click on the thumbs up, subscribe to our channel so that you get notified when we put out new videos, and make sure to come join us in our Ditch Auto Photography group on Facebook. We talk a lot about gear, photos, and we're also going through a photography challenge right now, so make sure to join in on that by joining our free photography group on Facebook. The link is in the description below. Thanks so much, and we hope to see you next time here on Ditch Auto.